An immortal trickster falls into a galaxy where suffering is law and death is mercy. The screams reach him first, billions of voices praying to a corpse. He came to play, but this universe doesn't understand games, so what happens when even chaos itself begins to fear the chaos he brings? The sky above Holy Terror split without warning or sound. No warp rift announced it, no veil thinned. Reality simply folded aside like parchment beneath an invisible hand, and through that wound stepped something that should not exist. He wore the shape of a man, dressed in the crimson and black of an officer's uniform from a time and place that had never touched this galaxy. His smile was wide, his posture relaxed, and his eyes glittered with the kind of amusement reserved for those who have never once feared consequence. In the span of a single heartbeat, every astropath on Terra screamed. From the polar fortresses to the equatorial hive stacks, from the gilded halls of the Senatorum Imperialis, to the catacombs where chained psychers fed the Astronomicon, they all felt it. Not the warp, not chaos, something else. Something that touched the Immaterium and the Materium simultaneously, threading through both like a needle through silk, unraveling neither, changing both. 300,000 sanctioned souls shrieked in perfect unison, their third eyes bleeding light, their minds brushing against a presence so vast and so utterly indifferent that it felt like staring into the smile of a god who had forgotten what gods were supposed to do. Inquisitor Halev Dawn was standing in the Hall of Judgment when the screaming began. He had been reviewing execution warrants, 17,000 names awaiting his signature when the sound reached him. Not through walls or doors, but through the air itself, a psychic wail that made the candles flicker and the picked screens shudder. Halev's hand went to his bolt pistol by reflex, his augmetic eye cycling through spectra, searching for the source. Around him, scribes collapsed, servitors locked in place, their logic engines stuttering. The marble floor cracked in a perfect spiral pattern, radiating outward from a point just beyond the eastern viewport. Then the man appeared, not walked, not materialized in a flash of light or a curl of smoke, simply appeared, standing 3 paces from Halev, with his hands clasped behind his back, as though he had always been there and the universe had only just noticed. "Fascinating," the man said, glancing around the hall with bright, predatory interest. "Absolutely fascinating. You still use candles, actual wax candles. After 10,000 years of galactic sprawl, you're still burning animal fat for ambiance. Tell me, is that a stylistic choice, or have you genuinely regressed that far?" Halev raised his bolt pistol in one smooth motion, targeting reticule locking onto the stranger's forehead. "Identify yourself. By the authority of the Holy Ordos, you are bound to answer." The man's smile widened. "Oh, I like you already. So serious, so certain. Let me guess, you've killed, what, 1,000 heretics? 10,000? Do you keep count, or does it all blur together after the first few planetary genocides? Final warning. Or what? You'll shoot me." The man leaned forward, tapping his own forehead with one finger. "Go ahead. I'm curious what a mass-reactive shell does to someone who doesn't technically exist in your frame of reference. Will it explode? Will it pass through? Will it loop back and redecorate this lovely hall with your own cerebral cortex? Let's find out." Halev fired. The bolt shell left the barrel at supersonic speed, its rocket motor igniting a fraction of a second after clearing the muzzle. It crossed the distance in less than a blink, the mass-reactive warhead primed to detonate on impact with a force sufficient to shred ceramite plate. The man did not move, did not flinch. The shell struck his forehead dead center, and for the briefest instant, Halev saw it begin to deform against the target, saw the warhead's casing compress, saw the firing pin begin its fatal plunge. Then the bolt shell became a butterfly. A small, delicate thing with wings the color of Terra's long-dead oceans. It fluttered once, lazily, before dissolving into golden light that smelled faintly of ozone and lavender. The man straightened, brushing a non-existent speck of dust from his collar. "Disappointing," he said. "I was hoping for something more dramatic. Shall we try again, or would you like to skip ahead to the part where you realize you're hopelessly outmatched? Halev's mind raced, cycling through protocols, contingencies, litanies of banishment. His augmetic eye flagged the stranger as null reading on every spectrum. No heat signature, no electromagnetic field, no warp presence, not invisible, not hidden. Simply absent from reality's accounting, a hole in the shape of a man. "You are a daemon," Halev said, his voice steady despite the ice forming in his chest. "Wrong. Try again." "Xenos, a psyker of unprecedented magnitude, colder. One more guess." Halev's finger tightened on the trigger, but he did not fire. The man's smile never wavered, never shifted, and in that unwavering certainty, Halev saw something worse than malice. He saw curiosity, pure, unfiltered, and utterly without restraint. "I am Q," the man said, as though that explained everything. "And you, Inquisitor Halev Dawn, are about to have the most educational day of your extraordinarily tedious life." He snapped his fingers. The hall vanished. Halev fell through light and sound and color, his stomach lurching as up became down and down became a direction that had no name. He saw terror below him, spinning like a child's toy, saw the moon split in half and reform as a grinning skull, saw the stars blink out one by one until only darkness remained. Then he hit the ground, hard, his armor absorbing the impact but not the shock. He rolled to his feet, bolt pistol raised, scanning his surroundings. He stood in the Hall of Judgment, same marble floor, same candles, same viewport overlooking the Eastern Palace spires, but the scribes were gone. The servitors were gone. The warrants on his desk had been replaced by a single parchment, blank except for a message written in flowing High Gothic. "Choose, see the truth, or remain blind." Q stood beside the desk, examining his fingernails with exaggerated disinterest. "I've always loved a good philosophical dilemma. Forces people to confront their assumptions. So here's the game, Inquisitor. I'm going to show you what your Imperium really is. Not the propaganda, not the liturgies. The actual, unvarnished truth. And you're going to decide whether you'd rather keep serving it, or admit that you've wasted your entire life propping up a rotting corpse. I serve the Emperor," Halev said. "Do you?" Q waved his hand. The viewport shattered outward, glass dissolving into mist. Beyond it, terror stretched in, all directions, but it was wrong. The hive spires were skeletal, their hab blocks collapsed, their streets choked with bodies. The sky was black, not with pollution, but with ash. Vast pyres burned across the landscape, each one fed by mountains of corpses. Halev saw children among them, saw old men and women, saw PDF troopers in scorched uniforms, their faces frozen in expressions of terror and confusion. "This is 3 days from now," Q said casually. "A clerical error in the administratum triggers a cascade failure in the water reclamation network. Half the population dies of thirst before anyone notices. The other half riots. The Arbites respond with lethal force. 12 billion dead in 72 hours, all because someone filed a report in the wrong bin." Halev's jaw tightened. "You lie." "Do I?" Q walked to the edge of the shattered viewport, spreading his arms. "Let's test that theory. Come here, look closer." Against every instinct, Halev approached. He looked down into the streets. Using his augmetic eye to magnify the scene, he saw the bodies, saw the pyres, saw the Arbites firing into crowds of unarmed civilians, their crowd control rounds replaced with live ammunition. He saw a child, no more than 6 years old, crushed beneath an armored boot. He saw a woman dragged from her home and shot in the street for the crime of hoarding water. "Still think I'm lying?" Q asked. Halev turned away, forcing his breathing to steady. "The Imperium endures. Losses are inevitable. Order must be maintained." Q laughed, a bright, cheerful sound utterly at odds with the carnage below. "Oh, you're perfect. Absolutely perfect. Let me guess. You tell yourself that every night, don't you? That the ends justify the means, that the Emperor's vision demands sacrifice. That every atrocity is just another necessary step toward some distant, glorious future. It is the truth. Then let's see how much truth you can stomach. Q snapped his fingers again. The world lurched, and Halev found himself standing in a command bunker deep beneath the palace. He recognized it immediately. This was the Chamber of Strategic Oversight, where the High Lords convened during planetary crises. Around him, hololithic displays flickered with tactical data, showing troop movements, resource allocations, casualty projections. At the center of the room stood Lord Commander Militant Tarek Voss, his face illuminated by the pale glow of the hololith. Halev opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came. He realized with a jolt that he was invisible here, intangible, a ghost observing a moment that had already passed or had yet to come. Q stood beside him, hands in his pockets, watching with the detached interest of a man observing insects. "This is 6 months ago," Q said. "Pay attention. You might learn something." Voss leaned over the hololith, his fingers tracing a path across the map of Terra's northern continent. "The riots are spreading. If we don't contain them within the next 48 hours, they'll reach the manufactorum districts. We'll lose a quarter of our war production." Recommendations? This from a woman Halev recognized as Ecclesiarch Meridine Volta, her voice cold and precise. Voss straightened. "Orbital bombardment, surgical strikes on the primary hive stacks. Collapse the infrastructure, seal the riots inside, let them burn themselves out. Casualties? 400 million, give or take." Meridine nodded. "Acceptable. Authorization granted." Halev felt his stomach drop. He had heard of the northern purges, of course, every inquisitor had. The official report claimed a localized heretical uprising, swiftly crushed with minimal collateral damage. He had signed off on the report himself, never questioning the sanitized numbers, never digging deeper. Q's voice was soft, almost gentle. 400 million, men, women, children, not heretics, not traitors, just hungry people who dared to complain about starvation rations. And your High Lords decided it was easier to kill them than to fix the supply lines. They were endangering the war effort, Halev said, his voice hollow. Were they? Or were they just inconvenient? Halev had no answer. Q snapped his fingers once more, and they were elsewhere. A battlefield this time, somewhere far from Terra. Halev saw the familiar silhouette of an Imperial Guard regiment dug in along a shattered ridgeline, their lasguns barking fire at an enemy Halev could not see. He saw a commissar striding behind the line, his bolt pistol raised, executing soldiers who faltered. He saw a field medic shot in the back for attempting to retreat with a wounded comrade. The Arcanos campaign, Q narrated, his tone almost bored now. 37 billion dead over a 17-year slog to capture a planet that turned out to be worthless, no strategic value, no resources, just pride. The general in charge refused to admit he'd made a mistake, so he kept feeding men into the grinder until someone higher up finally ordered a withdrawal. Halev watched a young soldier, barely old enough to shave, take a last bolt to the chest. He watched the boy's eyes go wide, watched him clutch at the wound, watched him mouth a word that might have been "mother" before collapsing into the mud. And you want to know the best part? Q continued. That boy's death accomplished nothing. The line he was defending was abandoned 6 hours later. He died for 6 hours of territory that his own commanders gave up before his body was even cold. War is suffering, Halev said, but the words felt weak, rehearsed. Is it? Q turned to face him, and for the first time, his smile faltered. Or is it just incompetence dressed up as duty? Before Halev could respond, the battlefield dissolved, replaced by a new scene. They stood now in a cathedral, vast and echoing, its walls adorned with icons of the god Emperor. At the altar knelt a young girl, no more than 12, her hands clasped in prayer. Around her stood a circle of priests, their faces hidden beneath hoods, their voices chanting in unison. Halev felt a chill run through him. He recognized the rite. This was a sanctioning ceremony, the final test for a nascent psyker. The girl would be subjected to a psychic assault, her mind open to the warp, and if she survived without corruption, she would be deemed worthy to serve. If she failed, she would be destroyed. He watched as the chanting grew louder, watched as the girl's body began to convulse, watched as her eyes rolled back and blood poured from her nose. She screamed, a high, thin sound that cut through the cathedral like a blade. The priests did not stop. They chanted louder, faster, their voices merging into a single droning roar. The girl's scream cut off abruptly. Her body went limp, collapsing onto the altar. The priests stepped back, silent now, and one of them moved forward to check for signs of life. After a moment, he shook his head. "Failed," he said simply. "Dispose of the body." Q's voice was quiet now, almost a whisper. She was 12 years old. Her name was Ilara. She wanted to be a medicae. She dreamed of saving lives. And you took her, strapped her to an altar, and broke her mind looking for demons that weren't there. Halev's fists clenched. The psyker threat is real. Without sanctioning, she could have become a gateway for the ruinous powers. Could have. Might have. Possibly one day in some hypothetical future. Q stepped closer, his eyes boring into Halev's. "You murdered a child on the off chance she might become a problem, and you call that justice?" "It is necessity." "No," Q said, and for the first time there was something cold in his voice, something that cut through his playful facade like a knife. "It's cowardice. You're so terrified of the warp, so paralyzed by your own fear, that you'll kill anything that even smells like a threat, even children, even innocents." Halev said nothing. He could not. Q snapped his fingers, and they were back in the Hall of Judgment. The candles still burned, the marble floor still gleamed, but Halev felt different now, as though something inside him had shifted, had cracked. "So," Q said, leaning against the desk with his arms crossed, "what have we learned today? That your Imperium is built on lies? That your Emperor is a rotting corpse worshipped by lunatics? That every single day, billions suffer and die for no reason other than bureaucratic incompetence and systematic cruelty?" Halev's hand tightened on his bolt pistol. "You think you can break me with visions? With tricks?" "Oh, Inquisitor." Q's smile returned, sharp and predatory. "I'm not trying to break you. I'm trying to make you think, because right now, you're nothing but a cog in a machine designed to grind up human beings and spit out corpses. And I find that profoundly boring. Then why are you here?" Q tilted his head, considering the question. "Honestly, I'm not sure yet. I came here expecting a simple diversion. A quick laugh at the expense of yet another fascist dystopia. But this place, this Imperium of yours, it's something special. You've managed to create a system so monstrous, so utterly devoid of hope or joy, that even I'm impressed. And that's saying something." Halev raised his bolt pistol, aiming at Q's chest. "I will not let you mock the Emperor's vision." "Then shoot me," Q said, spreading his arms wide. "Go ahead, pull the trigger, see what happens." Halev hesitated. His finger rested on the trigger, the weight of the weapon familiar and comforting. But he did not fire. Something in Q's eyes, some flicker of genuine curiosity, stopped him. "Smart man," Q said. "Because here's the thing, Inquisitor. You can't kill me. You can't banish me. You can't even inconvenience me. I am beyond your weapons, beyond your prayers, beyond your laws. I am Q, and in this moment, I am your judge. I do not recognize your authority. You don't have to. The universe doesn't care about your recognition." Q pushed off from the desk, walking in a slow circle around Halev. "But here's the fun part. I'm going to give you a choice. A real choice, not the false binary your Imperium loves so much. You can continue serving this nightmare, pretending that every atrocity is justified, every death necessary. Or you can open your eyes, acknowledge the truth, and try, just try, to make things even slightly less awful. And if I refuse? Q stopped, turning to face him. Then I'll show you more. So much more. Every single crime your Imperium has committed, every child burned, every world sterilized, every innocent soul fed to your machine. I'll make you watch it all, every second, every detail, until you either change your mind or lose it entirely. Halev met Q's gaze, his jaw set. I have seen horrors you cannot imagine. I have stared into the warp itself. You cannot frighten me. Frighten you? Oh, Inquisitor. Q's smile widened, his eyes glittering with something that might have been genuine interest. I don't want to frighten you. I want to educate you. He snapped his fingers, and the world exploded into light. Halev found himself suspended in the void, surrounded by stars. No, not stars. Souls. Billions upon billions of them, glowing softly in the darkness, each one a life, a story, a collection of hopes and dreams and fears. He saw them stretch out in every direction, an infinite tapestry of existence, and for a moment the sheer scale of it all took his breath away. Then he saw what lay beneath. The warp, the Imperium, the sea of souls. It churned below the veil of reality, a roiling mass of emotion and madness, and within it he saw faces, not human faces, not xenos faces, something else. Something older and vaster and infinitely more hungry. The Chaos Gods, Khorne's rage, Nurgle's despair, Tzientch's ambition, Slanesh's ecstasy. They pulsed and writhed and reached upward with claws made of stolen dreams, tearing at the veil, dragging souls down into the abyss. And feeding them was the Imperium. Halev saw it now, saw the truth he had refused to acknowledge for so long. Every execution, every purge, every act of senseless cruelty, every death born of fear and ignorance and spite, they all fed the warp, all strengthened the very gods the Imperium claimed to fight. The machine of humanity's salvation was, in truth, a conveyor belt to damnation. Do you see it now? Q's voice echoed through the void, coming from everywhere and nowhere. Your Imperium doesn't fight chaos, it feeds it. Every time you burn a heretic, every time you exterminate a world, every time you crush hope beneath your boots, you make them stronger. You are your own worst enemy, and you're too blind to see it. Halev tried to speak, but no sound came. He floated there, paralyzed, watching as the warp churned, and the gods laughed and the souls screamed. Then something changed. The warp shuddered. The gods' laughter cut off abruptly, replaced by something Halev had never expected to hear. Confusion, fear. The churning slowed, the currents shifting erratically, as though the entire sea of souls had suddenly become aware of something new, something wrong. Halev felt it too. A presence so vast and so utterly foreign that it made the Chaos Gods seem small by comparison. Q. He was in the warp now, or rather, the warp was bending around him, trying desperately to process his existence and failing. Halev saw daemons materialize and dissolve in rapid succession, their forms unstable, their essences unraveling as they tried to comprehend what they were seeing. He saw a bloodthirster charge at Q, its axe raised high, only to freeze mid-swing as Q glanced at it with mild interest. Fascinating, Q said, walking through the warp as though it were a garden. So this is what passes for divinity in your universe. I have to say, I'm underwhelmed. The bloodthirster tried to move, tried to strike, but it could not. Q reached out and tapped it on the forehead, and the daemon simply ceased to exist. Not banished, not destroyed, erased as though it had never been. Stop! A voice boomed through the warp, vast and terrible, and Halev realized with a jolt that it belonged to Khorne himself. You do not belong here. You are not of this reality. Leave, or face obliteration. Q laughed. Obliteration? From you? Oh, that's rich. Let me explain something, little godling. You exist because these mortals believe in you. You feed on their emotions, their fears, their rage. Take that away, and what are you? Nothing. A thought, a bad dream. He snapped his fingers. Shall we test that theory? The warp convulsed, and for the briefest instant, Halev felt the Chaos Gods recoil. Not in pain, but in something worse. Doubt. Q had done something, changed something, and now the gods were no longer certain of their own existence. Then reality snapped back, and Halev stood once more in the Hall of Judgment, gasping for breath, his armor drenched in sweat. Q stood beside him, looking entirely unbothered, his hands clasped behind his back. Apologies for the interruption, Q said cheerfully. Had to make a point. Your gods aren't as omnipotent as they'd like you to believe. In fact, they're rather pathetic when you get right down to it. Halev sank to his knees, his bolt pistol clattering to the floor. His mind raced, trying to process what he had seen, what he had felt. The certainty that had sustained him for decades, the unshakable faith in the Emperor's vision, felt hollow now, fragile. Why? He whispered. Why show me this? Q crouched down, meeting Halev's gaze at eye level. Because I'm curious. I want to see what happens when you strip away the lies, when you force someone to confront the truth they've been avoiding. Will you break? Will you adapt? Will you cling to your delusions even harder? I don't know, and that's what makes this interesting. You are a monster. Perhaps. But at least I'm honest about it. Q stood, brushing off his uniform. Your Imperium, on the other hand, wraps its monstrosities in prayer and duty and calls them virtues. Tell me, Inquisitor, which is worse? The monster who admits what he is, or the one who pretends to be righteous? Halev had no answer. Q walked to the viewport, gazing out at Terra's sprawling landscape. I've been to a lot of universes, seen a lot of civilizations. Some thrive, some collapse, some transcend. But you're something unique. You've built a system designed to perpetuate suffering, to grind down hope and replace it with fear. And the truly amazing part is that you think you're the good guys. We protect humanity. From what? Yourselves? Q turned, his expression serious for once. Let me tell you something, Halev. Every single threat you face, every xenos invasion, every demon incursion, every heretical uprising exists because of choices your Imperium made. You created this nightmare, and now you're trapped in it, unable to see any way out. Then what would you have me do? Q's smile returned, but it was softer now, almost sad. I don't know. That's the point. I can show you the truth, but I can't tell you what to do with it. That's your choice to make. And that, more than anything, is what makes this universe so damnably interesting. Before Halev could respond, alarms began to wail throughout the palace. The candles flickered and went out. The viewport cracked, spiderwebs spreading across the reinforced glass. Halev staggered to his feet, his augmetic eye cycling through spectra, trying to identify the threat. What's happening? Q tilted his head, listening to something Halev could not hear. Ah, it seems your warp has decided it doesn't like me very much. How predictable. The ceiling shattered and demons poured through. They came in a tide of claws and teeth and impossible geometry, their forms shifting and writhing as they forced their way into reality. Halev saw bloodletters charging forward, their hellblades raised, saw plague bearers shambling behind them, their bodies dripping with pestilence, saw horrors cackling and hurling bolts of warp fire. The Hall of Judgment became a battlefield in seconds, the marble floor cracking beneath the weight of the demonic incursion. Halev grabbed his bolt pistol and fired, his shots disciplined and precise. A bloodletter's skull exploded, its body dissolving into ichor. A plague bearer staggered as mass-reactive shells tore through its bloated torso. But for every daemon he killed, 2 more took its place. They were endless, relentless, driven by a fury that transcended mortal understanding. Q stood in the center of the chaos, utterly unconcerned. A bloodletter lunged at him, its hellblade aimed at his heart. Q caught the blade between two fingers, examined it for a moment, then flicked it aside. The bloodletter froze, its body locking in place, and then it began to laugh. Not the demon's usual roar, but a high, hysterical giggle that sounded entirely human. It collapsed, still laughing, its essence unraveling. "Oh, this is rich," Q said, dodging a warpfire bolt without looking. "Your gods are so terrified of me that they're throwing everything they have at this single room. Do they really think this will work?" A great unclean one materialized in the center of the hall, its vast bulk crushing the floor beneath it. It raised one massive claw and brought it down toward Q with enough force to shatter stone. Q raised a single finger, and the great unclean one stopped mid-swing, frozen in place. Q walked around it, examining it from every angle. "Interesting. You're not really here, are you? This is just a projection, a shadow of the real thing. Your true self is safely tucked away in the warp, too cowardly to face me directly." Q tapped the demon on its bulbous nose. "Tell your master I said hello." The great unclean one exploded into a cloud of flies that immediately died and fell to the floor like black rain. Halev fought desperately, his bolt pistol running dry, his sword drawn. He cut down a pink horror, dodged a stream of acid from a plague-bearer, drove his blade through a bloodletter's chest. But the demons kept coming, kept pressing forward, and he knew with grim certainty that he was going to die here. Then Q snapped his fingers, and everything stopped. The demons froze mid-attack, their claws inches from Halev's throat. Time itself seemed to halt, the air growing thick and heavy. Q walked through the frozen tableau, his hands in his pockets, examining each daemon with the casual interest of a man browsing a museum. "You know what the problem is?" Q said, not looking at Halev. "Your chaos gods are so used to being the apex predators in this universe that they've forgotten how to deal with an actual threat. They throw daemons at me like that's supposed to mean something. Like I'm supposed to be impressed." He stopped in front of a frozen bloodletter, tapping its chest. "But here's the thing. I don't play by your rules. I don't exist within your framework. To me, you're all just characters in a particularly grim story, and I can rewrite the plot any time I feel like it." He snapped his fingers again, and the daemons vanished. Not banished, not destroyed, simply gone as though they had never existed. The hall returned to its previous state, the floor intact, the ceiling whole, the candles burning once more. Halev stood panting, his sword still raised, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. Q walked over to the desk, picked up a quill, and began doodling on one of the parchments. "That," Q said, not looking up, "was a message. The Chaos Gods wanted me to know they're displeased with my presence. They wanted to establish dominance, to remind me that this is their territory." He finished his doodle, a crude smiley face, and set the quill down. "I'm not impressed." Halev lowered his sword, his hands shaking. "You could have stopped them instantly." "Why? Did you wait?" "Because I wanted to see what you'd do. Would you run? Would you fight? Would you beg me for help?" Q smiled. "You fought. Even knowing you couldn't win, even facing impossible odds, you kept fighting. That's the Imperium in a nutshell, isn't it? Futile defiance in the face of inevitable doom. It is our duty. Your duty is suicide." Q's smile faded. "But I suppose that's the point. Your entire civilization is a slow-motion apocalypse, and everyone's too indoctrinated to notice." Before Halev could respond, a new presence filled the room. Not chaotic, not corrupt, but alien in a way that made Halev's skin crawl. The air shimmered, and a figure materialized beside the desk. An Eldar. Female, clad in armor that seemed to shift colors with every movement, her face hidden behind a rune-inscribed mask. An Eldari Farseer. Q's eyebrows rose. Well, this is unexpected. I didn't think anyone in this universe was smart enough to track me." The Farseer removed her mask, revealing a face that was both beautiful and cold, her eyes ancient and calculating. "I am Farseer Elindris of Craftworld Ulthwé. I have foreseen your arrival, Q of the Continuum. You are a threat to the very fabric of reality." Q laughed. "A threat? That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? You do not understand what you have done. Your presence destabilizes the warp. The gods grow frantic. The skeins of fate are unraveling. If you remain, all will be lost." "All was already lost," Q said, gesturing at the hall around them. "This entire universe is circling the drain. I'm just speeding things up a bit." Elindris stepped forward, her hand raised, and Halev saw runes glowing around her fingers. "Then I must ask you to leave, not for my people's sake, not for the Imperium's, for the sake of existence itself." Q studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "You're serious? You actually think you can make me leave?" "I think I can appeal to whatever shred of conscience you possess." "Conscience?" Q's smile returned, sharp as a blade. "Oh, my dear Farseer, you fundamentally misunderstand what I am. I don't have a conscience. I have curiosity. And right now, I'm very, very curious about what happens next." Elindris's eyes narrowed. "Then you are as monstrous as the gods you mock." "Probably. But at least I'm entertaining." Q turned back to Halev. "So, Inquisitor, what do you think? Should I leave? Should I stay? Should I snap my fingers and rewrite your entire timeline just to see what happens?" Halev looked between Q and the Farseer, his mind racing. He thought of the visions Q had shown him, the atrocities, the suffering, the endless cycle of death and cruelty. He thought of the girl on the altar, of the soldier dying in the mud, of the billions burned in the northern purges. He thought of the Emperor, entombed on the golden throne, slowly rotting away while the Imperium collapsed around him. And he realized, with a cold, sinking certainty, that he did not know what was right anymore. "I cannot answer that question," Halev said quietly. Q nodded, as though he had expected that response. "Fair enough. Then let me make the decision for you." He snapped his fingers, and the universe shattered. Halev fell through time and space, through timelines that never were and never could be. He saw the Imperium at its height, the Great Crusade in full glory, space marines marching across 1,000 worlds, bringing unity and order. He saw the Horus Heresy, watched as brother turned against brother, watched as the Emperor fell and the dream died. He saw the present, the slow decay, the grinding attrition, the endless war. And then he saw futures, 100,000 possible futures, each one worse than the last. In one, the Imperium fell to chaos, terror consumed by a warp storm that swallowed the galaxy. In another, the Tyranids devoured everything, leaving only silence. In a third, the Necrons awoke in full force, their ancient technology erasing all organic life. And in every single future, humanity suffered, humanity died, humanity screamed. But in one future, one singular thread among the infinite tapestry, he saw something different. He saw Q standing on the golden throne, his hand resting on the Emperor's forehead. He saw the corpse stir, saw its eyes open, saw it look upon Q with an expression that might have been fury or gratitude or simple incomprehension. And then he saw Q step aside, and the Emperor rose, not as a god, not as a savior, but as a man, ancient, weary, and infinitely sad. The Emperor looked out across the Imperium, saw what it had become, and wept. And in that moment, the entire structure of faith and fear and fanaticism that held the Imperium together began to crack. "Is this what you want?" Q's voice echoed through the void. "To bring back the man and destroy the myth? To shatter the machine and force humanity to face the truth?" Halev could not answer. The question was too vast, the consequences too immense. Q appeared beside him, and they stood together in the void, watching as the futures unfolded and collapsed and reformed. "Here's the thing, Inquisitor, I can do this. I can wake your Emperor. I can rewrite your history. I can erase the Chaos Gods with a thought, but the question is, should I? Would it make things better, or would it just create a different kind of nightmare? I don't know, Halev whispered. Neither do I. And that, my friend, is the most honest answer either of us can give. Q turned to face him, his expression serious. This universe is broken. Fundamentally, irreparably broken. But it's also stubborn. It keeps fighting, keeps surviving, keeps clawing forward even when every rational being would have given up. And I find that, against all logic, admirable. Then what will you do? Q smiled, and for the first time it seemed genuine. I'm going to watch. I'm going to observe. And if I get bored, I might nudge things in interesting directions. But I'm not going to save you. That's your job. He snapped his fingers, and Halev found himself back in the Hall of Judgment. Alone, the candles burned, the marble gleamed. The warrants still sat on his desk, awaiting his signature, but everything felt different now, heavier, as though the weight of the galaxy had settled on his shoulders. Farsia Elindris materialized beside him, her expression grim. He has left this place, but he has not left your reality. He remains, watching, waiting. The skeins are in chaos. I cannot see what will come next. Then we are blind, Halev said. No, we are free. Elindris turned to face him, and for the first time he saw something like kinship in her alien eyes. For the first time in 10,000 years, the future is unwritten. What we do now matters, what we choose now matters, and that is both a gift and a curse. Halev looked down at the warrants on his desk. 17,000 names, 17,000 lives. He picked up the first parchment, read the burst. Name, read the charge. Heresy, it said. Suspicion of consorting with xenos. No evidence, no trial, just a name and a death sentence. He set it aside unsigned, then the next, and the next. One by one, he read them, and one by one, he found them wanting. Not all. Some were genuine threats, true heretics who had to be stopped. But most were innocents, caught in the machine's gears, condemned by fear and ignorance. By the time he finished, he had signed 3 of the 17,000. The rest he set aside, marked for review, for investigation, for a second chance they should have been given from the start. Elindris watched him in silence. When he was done, she nodded. That is a beginning. It is not enough. No, but it is more than most would do. Halev looked up at her, his jaw set. If Q is watching, if he is waiting to see what we do, then I will show him. I will show him that humanity can be more than the nightmare it has become. And if you fail, then at least I will have tried. Elindris inclined her head, a gesture of respect. Then you are not beyond hope, Inquisitor. And that is rarer than you know. She vanished, dissolving into light, leaving Halev alone once more. He stood in the silent hall, the weight of his decision settling over him like a shroud. He knew what he had done would be seen as weakness, as heresy, as betrayal. He knew the Inquisition would come for him, that his own brothers would hunt him for daring to question the machine. But he also knew, with absolute certainty, that he could not go back. Q had shown him the truth, and now he could not unsee it. The Imperium was a nightmare of its own making, and the only way to end the nightmare was to wake up. Somewhere, in the space between spaces, Q watched and smiled. The days that followed were chaos. Word of Q's appearance spread through the palace like wildfire, carried by terrified scribes and shell-shocked adepts who had felt the psychic scream of every astropath on Terra. The High Lords convened in emergency session, their faces pale, their voices sharp with fear. Inquisitors from every ordo descended on the capital, demanding answers, demanding action, demanding blood. But Halev did not answer their summons. He had withdrawn to his personal sanctum, a fortified chamber deep beneath the palace, where he could think without interruption. The walls were lined with data slates, each one containing reports, testimonies, confessions extracted under torture. The accumulated evidence of a lifetime spent enforcing the Imperium's will. He looked at them now with new eyes, and what he saw sickened him. How many of these were true? How many were manufactured? How many lives had he destroyed because it was easier than asking questions? A chime sounded, and the sanctum door hissed open. Halev's hand went to his bolt pistol by reflex, but he relaxed when he saw who stood in the doorway. Interrogator Marin, his apprentice, her face drawn and worried. "My lord," she said, her voice tight. "The conclave is demanding your presence. Lord Inquisitor Varak has declared you compromised. There is talk of censure, of excommunication." "Let them talk," Halev said, turning back to the data slates. "My lord, they will come for you. If you do not answer, if you do not defend yourself, they will declare you traitor. They will execute you." "Perhaps they should." Marin stepped into the sanctum, the door sealing behind her. "What happened? What did that creature do to you?" Halev hesitated, unsure how to answer. How could he explain what Q had shown him? How could he convey the weight of 10,000 years of accumulated sin? "He showed me the truth," Halev said finally, "and I cannot unknow it." "The truth?" Marin's voice sharpened. "What truth?" "That creature was a demon, a warp spawn sent to corrupt you. Whatever it showed you, whatever it said, it was lies designed to break your faith, was it?" Halev turned to face her. "Tell me, Marin, do you remember the Northern Purges? 400 million dead in orbital bombardment. The official report said they were heretics, but they weren't. They were just hungry, and we killed them because it was easier than feeding them." Marin's face paled. "How do you know that?" "Because I saw it. I saw the command bunker. I heard the High Lords give the order, and I saw the bodies." Halev's voice was steady, but his hands shook. "We are not the defenders of humanity, Marin. We are its executioners. That is heresy." "Is it? Or is it just the truth we've been avoiding?" Marin drew her last pistol, her hand trembling as she aimed it at Halev's chest. "I should kill you where you stand." "Then do it." Halev did not move, did not raise his weapon. "But before you pull that trigger, ask yourself one question. How many innocents have we killed in the Emperor's name? How many children have we burned? How many worlds have we sterilized? And for what? To preserve a machine that grinds up human souls and calls it righteousness?" Marin's finger hovered over the trigger, her face twisted with anguish, with doubt, with the same crushing weight Halev had felt in the void. And then, slowly, she lowered her weapon. "What do we do?" she whispered. "We change things, or we die trying." Before Marin could respond, the lights flickered and died. Emergency lumens kicked in, bathing the sanctum in crimson light. An alarm wailed, distant but growing closer. Halev's augmetic eye cycled through spectra, searching for the threat. "Breach," he said, grabbing his bolt pistol. "South wall. Something's coming through." The wall exploded inward, ceramite and rockcrete shattering like glass. Through the smoke stepped a figure clad in midnight blue power armor, its surfaces etched with silver runes, its helm crowned with a psychic hood. A Grey Knight Terminator, one of the chamber militant of the Ordo Malleus, the Imperium's ultimate weapon against demonic incursion. And behind it came more, 6 in total, their storm bolters raised, their Nemesis Force weapons gleaming with psychic fire. At their head stood a figure Halev recognized immediately. Grand Master Aldrich Voss, commander of the Third Brotherhood, his face carved from granite, his eyes cold as the void. "Inquisitor Halev Dawn," Voss said, his voice amplified by his armor's vox grill. "By order of the Conclave of Terror, you are declared compromised by xenos influence. Surrender yourself, and your death will be swift." Halev raised his bolt pistol, knowing it was futile. A single Inquisitor and his apprentice against 6 Grey Knights. It was not a fight. It was an execution. "I will not surrender," Halev said. Voss nodded, as though he had expected that answer. "Then you will die." The Grey Knights raised their weapons, and in that moment the world stopped. Time froze. The Grey Knights locked in place, their fingers on triggers that would not pull. Voss's face remained impassive, caught mid-breath. Only Halev and Marin could move, trapped in a bubble of suspended reality. Q appeared between them and the Grey Knights, hands in his pockets, looking bored. "Really?" Q said, glancing at the frozen Terminators. "This is the best they could send? I was expecting something more dramatic. Assassins, maybe. Or a full exterminatus fleet. But no, just 6 walking tanks with delusions of righteousness." He walked up to Voss, tapping the Grand Master's psychic hood. "You know, for someone who claims to be an expert on demons, you really don't know one when you see one." "Q," Halev said, his voice tight. "Why are you here?" "Because I'm invested now. You made an interesting choice back there with the warrants. I wanted to see what would happen next. And what happens next, apparently, is this." He gestured at the Grey Knights. "Your own people trying to kill you for daring to question the system. How very Imperium of them. Can you stop them?" "Of course I can. The question is, should I?" Q turned to face Halev, his expression serious. "If I save you now, you'll just keep making waves. You'll keep questioning, keep challenging, keep trying to change things. And eventually, they'll send someone even I can't stop. Well, theoretically. But you get the point. Then let them kill me. At least I will die with my eyes open." Q laughed, a genuine sound of delight. "Oh, I do like you. But no, I think I'll keep you around a bit longer. You're too interesting to waste." He snapped his fingers, and the Grey Knights vanished. Not banished, not destroyed, simply relocated. Halev's augmetic eye registered a brief flare of energy, and then they were gone, leaving only scorch marks on the sanctum floor. "Where did you send them?" Marin asked, her voice shaking. "Somewhere they can think about their life choices. Don't worry, they'll be back in a few hours. Probably very confused." Q turned back to Halev. "Now, here's the deal. I'm going to give you a gift, a small one, just to keep things interesting. I'm going to make it so that whenever